Okay, so we are reading from Canto 1st chapter to text 21, word to word meaning, translation purport by Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada ki jai. Vidhyate, pierced, Hridaya, heart, Grantihi, knots, Chidyante, cut to pieces, Sarva, all, Samshayaha, misgivings, Kshiyante, terminated, Cha, and, Asya, his, Karmani, chain of fruitive actions, Drishte, having seen, Eva, certainly, Atmani, unto the self, Ishvare, dominating. Translation purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thus the knots in the heart is pierced and all misgivings are cut to pieces. The chain of fruitive actions is terminated when one sees the self as the master. Purport. Attaining the scientific knowledge of personality of Godhead means seeing one's own self simultaneously. As far as the entity of living being as spirit self is concerned, there are a number of speculations and misgivings. Materialist does not believe in existence of spirit self, and empiric philosophers believe in the impersonal feature of the whole spirit without individuality of living beings. But the transcendentalists affirm that the soul and the supersoul are two different entities, qualitatively one but quantitatively different. There are many other theories, but all these speculations are at once cleared off as soon as Sri Krishna is realized in truth by the process of Bhakti Yoga. Sri Krishna is like the sun, and materialistic speculations about absolute truth are like darkest midnight. As soon as Krishna, the sun, is arisen within one's heart, the darkness of materialistic speculations about the absolute truth and living beings at once cleared off. In the presence of the sun, darkness cannot stand, and the relative truths that were hidden within the dense darkness of ignorance becomes clearly manifested by the mercy of Krishna. And who is residing in everyone's heart as the super soul. In Bhagavatam 10.11, the Lord says that in order to show special favor to His pure devotees, He personally eradicates the dense darkness of misgivings by switching on the light of pure knowledge within the heart of a devotee. Therefore, because personality of Godhead's taking charge of illuminating the heart of His devotees, certainly a devotee engaged in His service, transcendent love, cannot remain in darkness. He comes to know everything about the absolute truth, absolute and relative truths. Devotee cannot remain in darkness because the devotee is enlightened by personality of Godhead. His knowledge is certainly perfect. This is not the case for those who speculate on absolute truth by the dint of their own limited power and approach. Perfect knowledge is called parampara, or deductive knowledge, coming down from authority to submissive oral receiver who is bona fide by service and surrender. One cannot challenge the authority of Supreme and know Him also at the same time. He reserves the right of not being exposed to such a challenging spirit of an insignificant spark of the whole, a spark subjected to the control of illusory energy. The devotees are submissive, and therefore the transcendental knowledge descends from the personality of Godhead to Brahma, from Brahma to his sons and disciples in succession. This process is held by the Supersoul within such devotees. That is a perfect way of learning transcendental knowledge. This enlightenment perfectly enables a devotee to distinguish spirit from matter, because the knots of spirit and matter are untied by the Lord. This knot is called ahankar, and it falsely obliges a living being to become identified with matter. As soon as this knot is loosened, therefore all clouds of doubts are at once cleared off. One sees his master and fully engages himself in transcendental loving of the service of the Lord, making a full termination of chain of fruitive actions. In material existence, a living being creates his own chain of fruitive work and enjoys the good and bad effect of those actions life after life. But as soon as he engages himself in loving service of the Lord, he at once becomes free from the chain of karma. His actions no longer create any reaction. It's a beautiful purport. Okay, I'll just talk about that. Om Agyanat Nimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Prachar Nirvisheshanavadi Vashateshtarane Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Okay, so it's a beautiful verse and very famous, often quoted by Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada explains this verse in the purport line by line. And I'm going through the purport. I'll explain the purport. What Prabhupada is making very important points here. Very, very important points. The last line is Drishtva evatmana Ishvare. Prabhupada comments on that in the first paragraph of this purport. And he deals with this line, Drishtva evatmana Ishvare. Actually, this line, Drishtva evatmana Ishvare, this is very, let me say, sweet to Mayavadis. They like this line a lot. They can actually take this line and really screw up Vaishnavism, because Drishta means having seen. It's in past tense. Drishta. I mean to say Drishtati, that's to see, and Drishta means having seen. It's being seen. So having seen the truth, that's the whole idea. Having seen means having understood. When you say see, that means understand. It starts with understanding, and then of course it ends with seeing face to face. So just like when we say, suppose there's a problem and you say, and you ask an expert, can you see the problem? I mean, so that means, can you understand that problem? So when you understand reality and you can really perceive it, pratyakshvagamam dharmayam, then Bhagavat says, Drishtva evatmana Ishvare. He can see self as God. That can, one of the translations of this line, literally if you translate this, evatmani Ishvare. I mean to say in Sanskrit, you can break it as Atmani Ishvare. Yeah, Atmani Ishvare. He can see the Lord. Literally, if you translate it as, he can see the Lord within himself. It comes, but you can also translate it as, when one sees the self as master. Prabhupada does like that. It can also be done like that. It can be in two ways. So Mayavadis will say, okay, here is a proof. He can see himself as the master and the Lord himself. So this is a Mayavadi concept, clear. But here's a point. Srila Prabhupada brings the point in the purport that, this is a misgiving, because when we say that one can see the self as a master, it is in a qualitative sense and not in a quantitative sense. This line is commented by many acharyas, by the way. This can be understood in many ways. God and living entity becomes one. That's the whole idea there. But how they become one, that's another question. So oneness in not in quantity but in quality. That means as one starts advancing in devotion, and as you start perceiving Lord Krishna within holy names, within your heart, you will become qualitatively one with God. What that means, practically what happens is, you'll attain all the qualities of Krishna. Not all, you can't attain all the qualities of Krishna, but according to Nectar Devotion, at least 50 qualities of God living entity has, and they get manifested. Now all these good qualities are sleeping, are dormant in us. Evil qualities have dominated good qualities. That's what we are, isn't it? But as you drishta, as you start seeing and perceiving Lord Krishna and his name, form, pastimes and qualities, slowly you will become like him. That's all. Simple. And Prabhupada gives example what you think that you become. That's said, isn't it? So if you keep on thinking of Lord Krishna and Lord Rama, you start absorbing their qualities. Because in this word also, we tend to become like our ideals. We have ideal, we have a hero, and people absorb that personality within themselves. Am I right or not? You do that. So that's why, because Krishna is very merciful, and because saints are always meditating on Lord Krishna's qualities and pastimes, those qualities imbibe into their nature. Of course, Puta Mad Bhavam Agata. Krishna says, pure people, Puta means pure people, Mad Bhavam Agata. They not only absorb my qualities, Mad Bhavam, they absorb my emotions also. Prabhupada translates Bhavam as nature. Krishna says they not only attain to my nature, they not only become godly, but they also, Mad Bhavam means they also absorb my emotions. They can start to feel how I feel. And that is, by the way, Krishna consciousness. So if you ask what is Krishna consciousness, this term is coming from this line, Drishtva eva Atmani Ishvare. Krishna consciousness begins with being conscious about Krishna, about his name, form, pastimes and qualities. Being conscious, by the way. It is said by one of the acharyas that you can have Krishna with you in form of holy names, in form of Bhagavatam, but you might not possess him. And that is why it is said that when you have truth, a God, when you have the knowledge of God, but when it comes from within you, then that is perfection. So there's a difference between having and possessing. I might have some money, but I may not possess it. Am I right? A postman, in previous days you had postman who used to bring, what's that? So money order. They used to bring money orders. So they used to bring a lot of money and deliver. He had money, but he didn't possess it. That's all. A banker, they have lots of money, but they are not millionaires because they don't possess it. It's somebody else possessing it. So that's the whole point. Drishtva evatmani Ishvare. The whole point in this word evatmani Ishvare is he starts seeing God. Atmani means within himself. Atmani. It just keeps on going down. I don't know how. So Atmani means within oneself. So he starts to see God within oneself, within himself. Within himself means he starts possessing God now. And start to possess God means you can chant Hare Krishna, but at the same time you cannot be conscious of Krishna. That's the whole point. Prabhupada says, so Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada doesn't say Krishna thinking. No. Krishna consciousness is not Krishna thinking. Wrong. To say people can think about Krishna, but they can be complete sahijas. Philosophers also think about Krishna. Prabhupada says here, impersonalists, they think of Krishna, but they have wrong conclusion. Empirical philosophers, they also think of Krishna, but they have useless theories. Krishna consciousness is not Krishna thinking. Krishna consciousness is beyond that. Krishna consciousness is possessing God in form of holy name. And possessing God means absorbing his nature, his qualities, and absorbing his desires, and absorbing his feelings. That is Krishna consciousness. So it begins, of course, that's why Prabhupada defines Krishna consciousness many ways in his letters and conversations. And of course, Krishna consciousness begins with the fact of thinking about Krishna. That's one meaning. But then when you go higher in this concept, Prabhupada says Krishna consciousness also means that when Krishna starts thinking about you, when Krishna is conscious about you. And that's the next level. When Krishna is conscious about you, that's basically Madhyamadhikari. Kanisht is when you're thinking about Krishna and that's it. You don't care about the fact how Krishna is thinking about me. That's a neophyte. Okay, I go, I'm thinking, I'm doing puja, I'm chanting, I'm taking prasad, I'm doing Mangalarti. That's fine. But that's not fine. That's not fine enough. When you start taking knowledge and when you go to Madhyam level is all about, Bhagavatam says, Ishvare tadadhineshu What's that? Balisheshu dusasucha pre maitri kripa upeksha. Bhagavatam says Madhyam Adhikari, he's actually connected with God. That means he is for him more important is how a master and Lord is thinking about me, and not that how I am thinking about him. That's important, but more important is how he's thinking. That's where love begins. Am I right? Where relationship begins, where sambandha begins. So that's Madhyam. That is, Prabhupada gives one of the definition, how Krishna is conscious about you. And then Uttam is, when you keep on practicing that, how do you know what Krishna is conscious about you? Through devotees, through your spiritual master, that's how you know. And also, Krishna inspires from within the heart. Dadami buddhiyogam tam tesham evanukam partam aham ajnanam jam tama. Krishna says, I remove darkness. Prabhupada is mentioning here in this purport. Krishna reciprocates. And then when you keep on practicing and you don't fall down, you don't do offenses, you don't do some crazy crap nonsense thing, you don't become lazy, procrastination, that's even worse than offense is procrastination, by the way. In Krishna consciousness, general devotees, they don't do offenses unnecessarily. We don't do that. There can be conflicts, but that's okay. But main offense in Krishna consciousness is procrastination and laziness. That's, of course, and Matsya Puran gives a list of all 18 faults in any human. Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions in Jai Dharma. And the first fault is laziness and procrastination. That's what we fall down into after many years. We are doing the same thing what we used to do as a neophyte, but now we are doing not with that enthusiasm and vigor as we used to do when we came in Krishna consciousness. And that is a clear offense, because laziness is an expression of the fact that I don't like you. That's all. I don't like you, Krishna. Krishna says, why are you not serving me with enthusiasm? What's the problem? Don't you like me? That's what he's going to ask you. Next question, if you're lazy. And what's your answer? No answer. No answer. There's no answer, then you have to close your eyes and just shut down and ask pardon. So, that's why if you keep on going, then the next level, Uttam Adhikari, Prabhupada defines Krishna consciousness at the level of Uttam Adhikari. Prabhupada says, when you are conscious how Krishna is conscious about you, that is perfection. When you can think how Krishna is thinking about you. That's called love. And that's in any relationship. If a relationship is strong, like husband and wife, if after some time, after many years, the relationship becomes strong, if at all it becomes strong, mostly, if they don't separate. So then what happens is, in any loving relationship, you don't have to speak to each other. You understand. And that's what happens in Vrindavan. Here also, Radha Kalachandji is standing with Radharani. She's not speaking to him. He's not speaking to her. We don't see them speaking. But nevertheless, they speak to each other every second. That happens in Vrindavan. Radha and Krishna are sitting. They don't speak. They don't do anything. They're just sitting. And we read descriptions that's the best service which Radha is offering to Krishna. Now what's happening? She's doing nothing. And how can that be the best service? Well, that's the best service because she can think how Krishna is thinking about her, and Krishna can think how she's thinking about her, and then they can reciprocate with each other. That's how it goes. That's love, basically. So that's why it is said love doesn't have any language. It is said by one of the philosophers. Love doesn't have language. You can define love. That's what Mahaprabhu did. Basically, this whole word, Drishta Evatmana Ishvara, that's talking about love. When you can see Krishna within you, and within, Krishna says in Gita, my devotee is in me and I am in my devotee. Am I right? There's a verse there. What's that verse? He's in me and I'm in him. Oh, yeah. Mayititeshu chapeham. He's in me and I'm in him. That's the bond there. So Prabhupada is raising this point in the first purport, in the first paragraph. Well, Krishna removes the darkness, and Krishna is a person who is trying to contact you. We feel that we are trying to contact God, but more than that, He is trying to come near us. And the whole game, what is happening is, we are trying to block Him. That's what is happening. We are trying to block Him by using our free will in ways which we should not. That's what is happening here. That is called anarthas, by the way. Anarthas, another way to define anartha is, you are trying to block God by your thoughts, by your desires. And it's not that we are trying to attain Him and we are not able to attain Him. It's not the whole point. The point is the other way around. He is trying to attain us and we are blocking Him. That's what is happening. So that's a very important thing, because we have to look at the whole picture from His perspective and not from our perspective. We'll get confused. If we think we are trying to attain Him and we can't attain Him, then the whole point comes is, the blame goes to somebody else. Am I right? Okay, we are trying to attain Krishna and I'm not able to attain Him. So who is responsible for this? My not attaining Him? Maya. Okay, good. Maya. So Maya is a problem here. And she's bad. She is nonsense. What about us? We are good. No, that's not the whole point there. It's crazy. So there is some problem in us. We are the problem creator and He cannot attain us. He desires us. Am I right? That's why He comes as avatars. I mean to say, what's the evidence He wants to attain us? Well, He comes here within us, with us and within our society. And He gives knowledge, He interacts with people, and He says, come on. He invites. Bhagavad Gita is an open invitation. Sar dharman paritacche, please surrender to me. I mean to say, He's not a tyrant who is saying surrender to me. He's calling us, but at the same time, we are stopping Him. Now, how we are stopping Him, that's this whole verse all about. How we are stopping Him. We are stopping Him by doing three nonsense things. I mean to say, we are doing infinite nonsense things, but the three main things which we are doing, which we are not supposed to do, but we are doing, and that is why Krishna cannot come near us. There is a gap there, am I right? There is a gap. If you want to meet a person, and that person is not really acting properly, behaving properly. I mean to say, that happens, no, with devotees also. There's a devotee, okay, I mean to say, we want to talk to devotees, we want to associate, but some devotees, they don't act properly and they are very envious and they are not behaving properly. So what do? You want to meet him, but you don't, I mean to say, you want to meet him, but you don't meet him, because there comes a gap. Come on, this devotee, then I'll talk to him, he'll talk crap and he will criticize others. Am I right? It happens. So Krishna says, okay, I want to be with him, but there's a problem. Now there are three problems which he is very concerned about. And the first problem is, Prabhupada talks about Hriday. Prabhupada first talks about samshaya. This problem, samshaya, in the purport, doubts. So we actually, it's not that we have doubts. More important is we harbor and we nurture our doubts. That's what we do. Everybody has doubts. I mean to say, it's natural to have doubts because we don't have any knowledge of subject matter. We are in ignorance. We have no idea what we have to do. Am I right? From many births. So now, ordinary people, if you go outside, they have doubts. Okay, it is presumed that they will have doubts because they don't know anything about subject matter. Suppose if I tell you, okay, do you like Zing Zang? So you will ask me, what Zing Zang? Am I right? There's a doubt. And then I'll tell you, you are crazy. You don't know Zing Zang. Well, you don't know. That's why you have a doubt. So many lifetimes we didn't know who is Krishna, what is Bhakti, so we will have doubts. But the whole problem is when we come to devotion and we know Krishna and Bhakti, still we have doubts and we don't want to solve it. That's the whole problem there. And we don't take pains to solve those doubts. Some of the doubts we even don't know ourselves, there are doubts in us. And that's why the verse says sarva samshaya. It doesn't say doubts, samshaya. It says sarva samshaya. Sarv means all kind of doubts. There are doubts due to ignorance. Okay, Krishna says, fine. As you get knowledge, you will. There are doubts not due to ignorance also. There are some doubts due to not just lack of knowledge or ignorance, but there are some doubts due to, let's say, if you're not practicing properly, then it is not lack of knowledge, it is lack of practice, which brings some doubts. Like for example, lack of knowledge can bring you doubts. Okay, how does Krishna play in Vrindavan? Okay, you don't know. You can read and you can know. But lack of practice brings a doubt after some time. Is holy name and Krishna one? Am I soul or not? That's lack of practice, because this kind of doubt cannot solve by knowledge just. You have knowledge, but then you have to practice to realize this. So this is lack of knowledge, lack of practice brings some doubts. And this is second type of doubt, which cannot be solved by knowledge. There's a limit of knowledge. Holy name is God Himself. We are this body. We are not this body. We are soul. All these kind of things beyond these kind of doubts you can't solve by knowledge. So these kind of doubts are called as, let's say, lack of practice, or you can call these doubts as, let's say, intuitive doubts, which cannot be solved just by intellectual thing. You have to develop your intuition. Intuition in the sense, I mean to say, not in a literal sense. Philosophy uses this word intuition by actually realization. So this is another type of doubt. And then there is another type of doubt. It's lack of knowledge, lack of practice, and then some kind of doubts are lack of, or let's say, due to skepticism. You are doubting Thomas. You always keep on doubting. Some kind of doubts you have to keep in mind. You cannot solve it at the present stage, no matter how much you try, no matter how much you practice, no matter how much you have knowledge. They cannot be solved. They can be solved after, it needs time for those doubts to solve and maturity. So skeptics are those people who doubt everything. Okay, you have doubts, but the whole point is you have to understand which doubts cannot be solved now. That has to be postponed for later. You have to know. So there's a saying in English, one of the saints, he said, "Oh my Lord, give me the wisdom to understand what is impossible, and the courage to fulfill what is possible." That is wisdom. Knowledge will say everything is possible. Wisdom will say no. There is something impossible for you at this present stage. Just like a child has doubt what that girl and boy were doing on that chair. They were sitting together for 2 hours. They were not talking. Why they talk? Why they sitting together and seeing each other? Now he has a doubt and he asks his mother, "Mother, what was happening? I saw Mr. this and Mrs. that. They were sitting on a chair seeing each other for 2 hours and they didn't talk to each other a single moment. And what's happening?" Now what mother will say? Can she explain? Can she solve this doubt? Knowledge cannot do that. I mean, she cannot talk about lust because he have no understanding, that child. Or maybe she can ask him to practice. Okay, fine. So you take a girl, sit and see her, and then you will understand. No matter how much he practice, it doesn't happen. So what she'll say? She'll say, "Well, you're a baby now. When you grow up, you will understand." That's fine. So some kind of doubts are due to basically they need maturity and time. You can't solve. You have to postpone it. You have to keep it in your basket. And for example, in spirituality, there are some kind of doubts you cannot understand, you cannot solve. For example, Radha Krishna having Ras Leela here. Now what exactly is happening, knowledge cannot help you understand. It can give you a hint. Practice of devotion cannot really make you understand immediately. It cannot happen. It needs time, purity, liberation, and then you can really understand what's happening there. So you see, these are three kinds of doubts: due to ignorance, due to lack of practice, and some doubts takes time. Due to lack of time, I mean to say, maturity. So that's why it says sarva samshaya. Now these doubts we have, the whole point is, having these doubts is no problem, but the whole point is we are keeping these doubts by not taking knowledge. We are lazy. We don't want to read Prabhupada books. That's all. We simply want to chant, and that's okay. We want to do kirtans, that's okay. We want to honor prasad, that's okay. But we don't want to read books, so then how you will get about doubts? And we are weak in practice because our flesh is strong but spirit is weak. That's what it is said. And we are not so mature enough, we don't have wisdom. Which doubts we can solve now, which doubts cannot be solved now. And we can't deal with that. For example, this whole doubt of whether jivas fell down from spiritual world or not. What do you say about that? That's a big debate, and a doubt. So some people are really into that and trying to solve that thing, whether we fell down or not, and there's different hypotheses, theories. When they went to Prabhupada simply said, they asked Prabhupada whether jivas fell down or not from spiritual world. He gave many answers, but most common answer he said, well, when you become perfect, go back to Krishna and ask him. That's all. So this is the answer. I mean, so it might seem Prabhupada is trying not to answer the question by saying like this, but actually no, it is wisdom. He knows that this doubt will take a lot of time. We are not even ready to entertain this doubt, whether we came from spiritual world or not. We are not ready for that. Our consciousness is not ready for that, prepared. So Prabhupada's answer is very nice, perfect. This answer is coming from wisdom. This answer is not coming from foolishness, okay, just not to answer the question. That's not the whole point. That's why it says sarva samshaya. So we are trying to stop Krishna by not actually working on our doubts. That's the whole point. And the second problem with that is karmani. Karmani means our own fruitive actions. We even after coming to Krishna consciousness, we are involved in sense gratification. Then what do you do with that? So that's the offense. Shrutva api nam mahatmyam ya priti rahito adhama amamadi parmoso api nam apradhakrit. That's the last offense. Even after hearing so much about the subject matter, not to have attachment to Krishna and his service, and to maintain materialistic conception of life, of I and am. So that is our actions. Our actions are not up to the point. Even after Krishna coming to Krishna consciousness, we are actually disappointing Krishna. That's all, by doing sense gratification. Now you might say, why Krishna doesn't like sense gratification? I mean, is he envious of us? That's the whole point. And that seems enviousness, I mean to say, Krishna is dancing with gopis, Krishna can do everything, and when it comes to us, Krishna says, get lost, you don't have to do. And that's what, what's that? Satan, Satan says to people that you see you are fools, and he uses this F word for God. He says and he says, you see, God is complete nonsense, because he's trying to instruct you something which is impossible. He is saying, you see something, and you see, but at the same time you don't enjoy it. You put food on your tongue, at the same time don't taste it. You hear music, at the same time don't revel into that. Don't be jubilant into that music. You see, you touch something nice, at the same time you should not have feelings in you. Now he says this is complete nonsense. This is crazy. It seems impossible, am I right? But at the same time, karmani, that's the whole point. It is not impossible. Krishna gives a hint there. Krishna says it is possible. And he says, Yasya sarve samarambha kama sankalpa varjitam. In Gita he says, you have to go back to Gita again. He says, Yasya sarve samarambha. Whatever actions you do, it should be done kama sankalpa varjitam. It should be done without the intention. Sankalpa means without the intention to enjoy it. And then you can keep on doing, nothing will happen to you. Rag doisha vimuktaistu vishaya indriyascharan. He says, you will be in a pond like a lotus. That's the example given. You will not be affected by those things. So we are, now here's a problem. Karmani, we are creating these kind of karmani, these actions and reactions, and Krishna cannot approach us. Why? How we are creating? Because we have a fault in our intention. That's the whole point there. Nobody is asking you to stop doing actions, but intention counts. And that is why it is said, man sees action, God sees intention. That's what he is seeing. So if our intentions are correct, then there's but the whole point is, even after coming to Krishna consciousness, we don't take care of intentions and we fall into this trap. So that's another problem in us. That's another problem due to which Krishna cannot come near us. He has to maintain a gap. I mean to say, Krishna doesn't want to deal with people who are not pure. He doesn't like, because he is pure. That's all. A pure person will like to interact with pure people. A gentleman will like to interact with a gentleman. But we are not behaving like a gentleman. And the third problem is Hriday Granthi. Hriday Granthi means knots. And Prabhupada brings a point of knots. Prabhupada says there is a knot between a soul and a body. Prabhupada brings that point. Prabhupada is not talking about knots of, I mean to say, there are many knots. There are knots of husband and wife, children and parents, our property and us. It's all knots, big granthi. But then there is a biggest knot of body and soul. And that has to be severed. I mean to say, the whole purpose of Krishna consciousness is to cut that knot. Until unless you have a knot to this flesh, Krishna will not really talk to you. He doesn't do that. I mean to say, you see how many of us go to prison and talk to the prisoners. Sometimes we go for preaching, but generally people don't go who are in prisoners. They don't want to meet prisoners. Who wants to meet prisoner? We can go to preach, but at the same time, we don't want to go daily and talk to them and make friendship with them. That's not the whole point. You make friendship. People make friendship with people who are not in prison. People who are in prison, you don't want to make friendship with them. So people who are in bodily concept of life, Krishna helps them, but he doesn't really want to meet them because he wants them, he doesn't like them. I mean, he doesn't really, Krishna likes liberated people. He wants to be with them. He likes everyone, but there's a whole point of association. He wants to take association of liberated souls because he's liberated. He's beyond liberation. So that's what Krishna is. Now, see, these three problems are there in us. There are doubts. There are doubts. Our intentions are wrong, karmani, and Hriday Granthi. We have a bondage with our bodies. And Krishna doesn't interact with us until unless we work out our way with all these three things. Why? Because Krishna wants us to become pure. If he starts interacting with us, then we will say, okay, it's done. Krishna talks to us. Now I don't have to do anything. So it is Krishna meeting us is his mercy. Krishna not meeting us is his mercy. That's the whole point. He is trying to not meet us now. He is keeping himself aloof. And it's very difficult, by the way, if you see from Krishna's perspective. A mother keeping away from a child, it's very difficult for the mother. A mother says, okay, I'll not meet my child for 3 years. For the child it's easy, but for mother it's very difficult. She wants to see her child, am I right? Mamai Vamsha Jeev Loke. Krishna not interacting with us, it's very difficult for him. You see, we don't feel like that, but if you really go to next level of Krishna consciousness, how He is conscious of us, that's what is happening. But that's His mercy. He tolerates that separation from us out of His mercy. He wants to make us pure. That's all. And just like it happens sometimes with father and children, it happens, father and child. A child is doing something nonsense and mess. Father says, okay, in his mind, I'll not talk to him for 6 months. And that's a lesson for him. And then he will understand what is wrong. And when he corrects himself, I'll talk to him. This happens, no? Many times. So that's the whole point. Upeksha. Of all types of punishments, there are 11 types of punishments in Shastras. Number one punishment is upeksha, neglect. So neglect in the sense you stop talking, you stop interacting. You are there but you don't interact much, or you interact in ways which is not visible. You're doing but it is not visible, which is not evident, explicit. So in that way Krishna is, but that punishment is mercy, because a teacher starts neglecting the child so that he keeps learning. Am I right? So Krishna does that. He's not really neglecting, but at the same time he's neglecting us, because here he's not talking to us, that's all. The deities can talk. They were talking to our acharyas. They were interacting. Bhakti Santa used to talk with Gandharva daily. He used to go in Mayapur in the altar, he used to close the altar, sit, he used to talk. And once what happened, he went inside the altar, he sat, he came out and he told his devotees that we have to do Pandal program in 5 minutes. And they said, you're crazy. 5 minutes from where Pandal will happen and how people will come, what? He says, I don't know, Radharani just told me, if you want to do, otherwise it's not my problem. And people were absolutely, what's that? Flabbergasted, what's happening? So he used to talk. So, why? Deities used to talk. I mean to say, Prabhupada definitely would have been talking to Krishna. It's out of question. So why? What's happening? The problem is we are not pure. Drishta eva atmana ishvare. We have not worked on ourselves. And that's what this verse says. Vidyate, chidyate sarva samshaya. When you start doing devotion to Krishna with a proper understanding, that's the whole point. Then what happens is, Chidyante means all the doubts are destroyed. Srila Prabhupada says in the next paragraph, Prabhupada says, as you start doing devotion to God, Tesham satadektanam bhajtam pritipurvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam, Krishna starts giving you transcendental intelligence. And because of that intelligence, Prabhupada says here, Prabhupada makes a very interesting point. Prabhupada says that here's a line. Prabhupada says that as Krishna, the light, the sun dawns in your heart, as you're doing Krishna consciousness, you can see problems. You can start seeing the problems in your heart. He comes to know, you see Prabhupada writes, because of personality of Godhead taking charge and illuminating the heart of his devotee. Certainly a devotee engaged in service of Lord cannot remain in darkness. He comes to know everything of absolute and relative truths. You see here? He starts understanding what is wrong and what is right. And that's the first mercy of God. That is the real mercy. Real mercy is not happiness and bliss and satisfaction. That's not real mercy. That is, let's say, that is a side effect of devotion. That's not even a real symptoms of devotion. We don't talk about that. Mercy, satisfaction, peace. Kleshagni, that's a beginning, okay. Side effect. Real mercy, if Krishna is interacting with you, he will illuminate your heart so that you can start seeing doubts. Drishta word has to be, Drishta word is with all these three, am I right? When he having seen, Prabhupada says, having seen what? Having seen all these three things within our heart. having seen all these. So as you do Krishna consciousness, the first thing which is supposed to happen is that means Hriday Granthi. Okay, let's start from beginning. Drishta, he sees what? He starts seeing Hriday Granthi. He starts seeing the knots in his heart. He starts seeing, I'm attached. I'm attached to people, I'm attached to property, I'm attached to my body. And he starts perceiving his attachments. I'm attached to probably prasad, food, not prasad basically, food. I'm attached to my attachment, and there's a whole problem. So, and that's the blessings of God. If you start seeing your own attachments, because it's very difficult. We can't, many devotees tell us that you're attached, but at the same time, we don't sometimes accept that. And to see ourselves, we are attached to things, especially in Krishna consciousness, we can be attached to things we are using in service of God. That can happen. And that happens actually. We become attached because here we are using the products of Maya in the service of God. Am I right? And trying to make them spiritual. But if you attach to these things for your own sense gratification, then they are not acting spiritual no more. They act like matter for us. And then there's a whole problem there. So you start seeing that. That is called Vivek. You see, I told you seeing means understanding, isn't it here? So you start understanding. Now understanding is not knowledge, that's wisdom, that's Vivek, discrimination. So Krishna's mercy, first mercy is discrimination. He will give you discrimination power. To know what is Krishna, what is Maya. What is right, what is wrong. And to understand what is attachment and what is detachment. Hriday Granthi, where I am caught up. And how much I am attached. That's another thing. It's not you are attached, but it is how much you are attached. So Krishna gives you that discrimination. And because of that, Vidyate Hriday Granthi. Vidyate means, Prabhupada writes here, what does he write, Vidyate? He writes, pierced. All knots are pierced. Slowly attachments come down. It just goes down because why it goes down? Because Krishna has given us a discrimination power. We can see what is right, what is wrong, and we can leave the wrong things and keep the right things. I mean to say, you see the point. Krishna is not going to come and cut your knots. He's not going to do that. He is not in a habit of doing things. He is king. King will not do. Janmadyasyata anyavaditartasya abhigya swarat. First words of Bhagavatam is abhigya. He is independent and is swarat. Swarat means samrat. He is a king. King doesn't do anything. King plans and give orders. King might give you some plan so that you can see things and work on it. So Krishna gives you discrimination power, and when you start seeing, then you can work on it. So by Krishna's mercy and his guidance and of course our practice of devotion, Vidyate Hriday Granthi. Next is when your attachments starts going down, when you free yourself from attachments, then you start seeing your problems, real problems, because attachments doesn't let you see problems. Am I right? Attachment is such a thing. And the example given is a girlfriend and a boyfriend. They like each other so much. And for a boyfriend, the girl's eyes are like moon and the lips are like roses because they're too attached. And after marriage, everything changes. The eyes become something else and lips become, I don't like you. Now what happened suddenly? What happened is attachment goes down because of familiarity. Am I right? They become familiar and they start living with each other and attachment goes down. And when attachment goes down, the person starts seeing the fault. Hey, there's a problem with this girl. And the girl starts saying, oh, there's a problem with this man. So attachment doesn't allow you to see doubts and faults. They'll not allow you to see. You will have no doubts. Vidur, Dhritarashtra, didn't ever, he used to think there's a problem with my son Duryodhan. But when Duryodhan used to come in front of him due to attachment, he used to forget everything. Then he had no doubt, my son is a problem. All doubts gone suddenly. That's due to attachment, that's not due to knowledge. So as attachments, as your knots get pierced, you will start seeing your your ignorance, your doubts. Okay, this was a doubt, this was a doubt, and then you want to solve it. Otherwise you will not even perceive your doubts. That's how it goes. That's why people who are too attached to their house, to their families, if we tell them, well, you know what, until unless what's that, tavat angri, until unless, Brahmaji says, until unless you are attached to your family life and your money, you will not be able to achieve absolute truth. Now these people are attached, and you tell them you are attached, well, you can't understand absolute truth. They will say no. Attachment is such a thing that you will not even perceive attachment. You'll become so blind. I mean to say, you talk to anybody and you say you are attached to your family and this, they will say, well, okay, in India if you go, well, no, we are not attached. Ordinary man will say, I am not attached, everything is God's. Isn't it normal answer? People say, they will talk like this. But then they are completely attached. We have to convince them, you are attached, hey. So attachment is such a thing, it will blind you so much that you will not even perceive you attached. And that was the problem with Vidur and Dhritarashtra. Vidur came to Dhritarashtra, he was trying to explain Dhritarashtra, you are completely blind, you are completely attached to Duryodhan. Dhritarashtra used to tell, well, I am not attached, and that blah blah blah. And Vidur had a tough time to explain him, you are attached. And at the end at the end moment, he accepted, okay, I am attached, and then he left the home, whatever, something happened. And actually Vidur told Dhritarashtra, you are like a dog's tail. You can't, you can't straighten it out. He used very bad words for Dhritarashtra after he was completely frustrated. So that's the whole point. When Hridaya Granthi, when knots gets broken, knots means attachments goes down, you start seeing problems within yourself. You're not no longer blind. You start seeing doubts which you had, which you can't perceive. And then by the mercy of Krishna, because Krishna is giving you knowledge also through scriptures, that will lead to Chidyante Sarva Samshaya. Your whole cut to pieces, your doubts are cut to pieces. That you have to work. He will not work for us, by the way. He's not working for us. He will make you see your attachments, you have to cut it. He will make you see your doubts by knowledge, you have to work it out. And then Shiyante Chasya Karmani, when doubts go down, when you get above your doubts, at least doubts due to ignorance and lack of practice that you can work out now, doubts due to lack of maturity that will come with time. That doesn't happen before time. So if your doubts then comes down, then what happens is Shiyante Chasya Karmani. When you don't have a doubt, then you are convinced what you have to do and you are doing right thing. That's how it goes. If you have doubt, then you can't decide what is right, what is wrong. And your actions, if you are indecisive, your actions will not be correct. That's how it goes. And that is why it is said, if your will is true, you will find your way. That's a saying by Confucius. So if you don't have doubt in yourself, you will find the way. You will really understand, okay, this is right, I should take it. Anukulasya sankalpa pratikulasya varshan. This is wrong, I will not. You will start understanding what is favorable and what is not favorable for devotion. Even within the rules and regulations of scriptures, there are many rules which might not be favorable to us, to an individual. So he has to decide whether I should do this rule or not. Leaving aside basic rules of devotion that everybody has to follow, there are many subtle rules which you have to really decide, whether you have to, on an individual basis. There are some rules which are applicable, which are very favorable to brahmachari life. Some rules in scriptures which are not favorable to brahmachari life, which are only favorable in the life of householders. And that you can understand by if you don't have doubts. Otherwise you can keep on debating on scriptures and you will come to no conclusion. That's all. We can also debate on Prabhupada, what Prabhupada said in Prabhupada books, and we can keep on debating and there will be no conclusion, because there are so many instructions in Prabhupada books. People can quote something, people can quote another thing, and there are so many debates and arguments going on. But how to come to conclusion if we are talking on scriptures and then we have to decide within scriptures what is favorable and what is not favorable. Just like many people say for preaching this is favorable, Prabhupada says this, and other devotee says no, for preaching this is favorable, Prabhupada says that also equally. What to do? So that will happen if those previous two things, now who will decide? A person who is free of attachments and who has worked on his doubts, he can give a true conclusion. Okay, here, you should do this and not this. Even though Prabhupada says this, but Prabhupada also says that, within the two, what to choose now, you choose this. So that is Shyante Chasya Karmani. Your all fruitive actions will come to end. If there's no doubts, your sankalpa is strong. The only thing which weakens your intention is doubts. Am I right? Your sankalpa, your intention, your determination to attain Krishna, that will be weakened by doubts. That's gone, your actions are proper, and that's it, and you are done. Shyante Chasya Karmani Drishta. Now here, this is a point. Now, Drishta is for both. Now, having seen, having actually done all these things, having destroyed all your attachments, all your doubts, all your nonsense activities, your wrong decisions, what happens is Evatmani Ishvare. Then you start perceiving God within yourself. Evatmani, in your soul you start perceiving Ishvara, God. That means Krishna then will touch your soul. Isn't it? I was saying, because of three problems, he is not. See, he is there in front of us. That's a different thing. But to touch us, that's a very different thing. So he touches a soul. When he finds, okay, this person, he has worked on himself, he's making himself pure. When he touches the soul, that's love, that's all. That's what is love all about. So that's what this verse is talking. And Srila Prabhupada writes all these points in his purport. You can see this here. And Prabhupada says then your life becomes perfect because you are in union with God. Okay, Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Any questions? Anything anybody wants to ask? I'm done.
Thank you so much. It's a really nice question.
Thank you, bro. Thank you. What's your name? I just. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, last year also. Last year you were there. Thank you. Okay, so So I just want to speak. Just say something. If there are people on the internet also, and there are some people there. I have this 2 CDs here. Pen drives. Can you give my books here? Books. I have 2 pen drives. These are pen drives of my lectures. These are 400 hours of lectures here. I've spoken on entire Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Gita, but in a little systematic and logical fashion, bringing Prabhupada points out. So there are 400 hours of lectures and 8 hours of video on science and spirituality. My job is to preach to scientists, and that's why I like to present even Bhagavatam as a science. Prabhupada wanted that. In science means logical sequence and with evidence and symptoms like that. So this is all CDs are having this thing, all these lectures and videos. You can put in your car, keep on listening, and then contact, and then you can maybe interact with me. And there are some books. If anybody wants, you can have. This is Crazy Ideas, which I wrote for preaching and for preaching to others, preaching to oneself. There are many doubts. Sarv Samshaya, which we even do not know that these doubts exist. In science, in spirituality, in theology, in theosophy, and many other areas. So all those crazy ideas are there, and then I have given arguments for that, so that you can preach well. I mean to say the arguments are very broad. It's not just from Prabhupada books, because in preaching you can't say that Prabhupada said. It doesn't work. Because who cares for Prabhupada? So you have to give a very, very big, broad perspective from philosophy, from science, from all the areas. So all those arguments I have put there. Another book for devotees is Small But Mighty Efforts. Whatever I spoke today, all these subtle points, I collected in this book, Small But Mighty Efforts. What Prabhupada is saying, about Krishna consciousness, what Bhaktisiddhanta Bhaktivinoda Thakur they are commenting, and how Prabhupada has interwoven all the teachings of previous acharyas in his teachings. That's what I've shown in this. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says, unless we extend our best efforts earnestly and qualify ourselves for Lord's mercy, it is next to impossible that we can be rescued from a fallen condition. So you need to apply mighty efforts. But how to do that? And to say, what do we expect when we are advancing? Just like I told, people think if they get bliss, peace and satisfaction, they are advancing. But no, that's a side effect of devotion. You might be advancing, you might not be. But real advancement is when you get a discrimination power, and then so on and so on and so on. There are some kind of particular scientific analysis of that, which our acharyas and Prabhupada are giving in his books, but I've simply put it together there so that you can see it. So, and another book is Science Fails to Explain Life. So this is about science, about genetics, about life, about molecules, the story of life and how scientists utterly failed in explaining life. People don't understand scientific jargon, so I have to put it in a simple language. How life came to be first as a mysterious force, and then they reduced it to molecules, then to atoms, then to interaction between molecules, and then finally information and genes. And then the whole circle went back, and they were more confused than before, having more knowledge. It's crazy. And then so I explained all the story of life, and then the alternate Vedic paradigm about explaining life, which Prabhupada wanted. So if anybody wants his books and pen drives, you're most welcome. And thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.